It is Tuesday, November 1st, 2022, 10 a.m. Central Time here in beautiful Omaha, Nebraska. Excited to visit with Nikki for the next 30 minutes. Nikki, I'll let you introduce yourself here in just a moment. But let me cover some housekeeping items first for our live listeners. We do encourage you to ask a question. You can type in a question. So there's a Q&A button that you can click on. You can click a little box that says anonymous, unless you really don't care if your name is shown. Either way, it's completely up to you. But we love audience engagement in these conversations. It really just helps with the flow of the conversation and adds so much more. So don't be afraid to ask a question. Anything that Nikki says, go ahead and type in a question. And I will make sure that it gets asked. And Nikki, I'll watch the question box so you don't have to pay attention to that. Don't even worry about that. That's my job. Your job today, Nikki, is to talk about caregiver recruitment and retention. But before that, my name is Jen Chaney, Vice President of Franchise Development. If you've listened to these Tuesday talks before, you already know who I am. I have interviewed Nikki before, but it has been a while, and a lot of things have changed when it comes to caregiver recruitment and retention. It's a hot topic. It's an FAQ we get a lot, Nikki. So I cheated a little bit and I wrote down some questions that I have for you as we get started here. But why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our listeners?
Awesome. Happy to do that, Jen. Thank you so much. And by the way, you didn't cheat much because you didn't share with me any of those questions. So this is
I did that on purpose.
Oh my gosh, this is a hot take Tuesday. That's what this is.
No curveballs, I promise.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much for having me join. My name is Nikki, like Jen said. I am the Vice President of Human Resources here for Right at Home. I do wear a few different hats within the organization. So I have the pleasure of working with our corporate HR team here, and we support the folks that support our franchisees. So that's our job. We're making sure that we're doing all the things we need to do for the employees at the franchisor, the corporate office, so that they can do their best and support franchisees. And then the other hat, one of the other hats that I have the privilege of wearing is working with our employee experience team. And our employee experience team is that team that is 100% dedicated to supporting franchisees and the office staff in regards to caregiver and office staff recruitment, retention, engagement, and all those things. So we're working on resources and tools and all that good stuff for our franchisees to be successful.
Perfect. We already have a question, Nikki.
Awesome.
We're 3 minutes in. We already have a question. This is a great question to ask right in the very beginning because it kind of sets the tone for the rest of the conversation. But the question is, what are some of the causes of the labor shortage right now? Yeah. So let me just, before you answer that, labor shortage, it's across the board. It's you name the industry. There's an issue with labor shortage right now. There's no secret behind that. It's not just Right at Home. It's not just, literally everybody is having issues with that right now. Again, the date, November 1st, 2022. So just provide our listeners with some reasons why that is.
Yeah. I'm sure we've all felt it. We feel it when we go to the grocery stores and the lines are backed up. We feel it when we're in the drive-through. We feel it when places are closing early because of no help. And so, Jen, you're right. It absolutely is impacting all industries. And really from what I understand, the research I've done and people I've spoken to, it comes down to a few things. It comes down to the biggest fundamental piece of it is employees in a demographic where they're earning between minimum wage and say $15, $16, $17 an hour. That demographic of employees, more than any time in our history as Americans, are speaking up and saying, hey, here's what I want. Here's what you're going to have to do for me. Mm-hmm. And there's becoming this philosophical shift among employees or candidates or applicants in that demographic. They're saying, What's in it for me? What have you done for me lately? And they're asking about wage. They're asking about benefits. They're asking about training opportunities. They're asking about growth opportunities. They also, this generation, more than any coming into the labor market, want to make an impact. They want to make a difference. They're not into making widgets anymore. They're not into the fast food chains, which is really exciting, Jen, because our industry, we have that innately, right? Where you do get to make that difference. That's what the employees are looking for. But outside of that, there has to be some philosophical shift in how we approach employment these days. It is no longer, oh, guess what? I can go and find another employee in 10 minutes. I can post a job and I'll get applications. And in candidates today, they know that. They know employers are looking, they're searching, they're hungry for quality applicants. And applicants, as a result, are holding on to and saying, here's my non-negotiables, and this is what I'm looking for. So that's the primary reason. We can blame the pandemic, we can blame all those things, but that's really a lot of what it comes down to.
Yes. Okay. So there is another question that came in, and I'm going to preface this. Okay, so I'm just going to read the question. It says, so that said, should I wait to open a business? And before you answer, I'm going to cover a couple things here. So whoever is asking this question, obviously you're interested in purchasing a right-at-home franchise. There will be a point in the process where you get to something called franchisee validation, where you're going to call some of our existing owners to talk to them about what it's like being a right-at-home franchise owners. And I will say, and Nikki, correct me if I'm wrong, we have some franchise owners that do not struggle at all with caregiver recruitment and retention. But the fact is that we do have some franchise owners that struggle with that, which is why we've got Nikki, and which is why we have the team that she talked about. So over the course of the next 30 minutes, we're going to talk about the things that we do to assist our franchise owners with those challenges. So for the person who typed that question, the choice is yours on if you want to move forward with purchasing a business now, or if you want to wait. The fact is that you're going to have a lot of support. That's one of the reasons why you're buying a franchise. You've got the support, the processes, the procedures. We've done this a time or two before. We've got the resources in place to assist our franchise owners with those challenges. So you need to get to a level of comfort before you decide if right now is the right time for you or not. Do you want to? I just basically answered the question for you, Nikki.
No, I'm going to add to that, Jen. You'll never get away with answering for me. I like to talk way too much, but I will say, in my opinion, no, this should not be a reason that you wait to purchase a business. There is no time like the present, and the way that this market is growing and the opportunities that are in this market right now in doing the work that we do as a brand at Right at Home, there is no time like the present. And like Jen said, there are franchisees who have no problem recruiting. Now, some of that, of course, there's, what area do you live in? What's the metropolitan area? What's the unemployment rate look like, right? There's all of those factors that come into this. But here's the good news, is everything that I just talked about 2 minutes ago is all within your control. It is about building that employment brand where you are working and what you're operating. So whether you open today, a year from now, or 20 years from now, you're still going to have to be cognizant of what is that employment brand that you are creating and that you are using to entice and bring people into the door and keep those folks. The good news is, like Jen said, that we've done this a time or two. And when franchisees are successful in what they're doing, those are the first stories that we're sharing. And those are the first tools that we're sharing, saying, hey, look at this, try this. Here's a template for you to go out and operationalize. And we're here to ask questions and to bounce things off of. But so are other franchisees. That's the really exciting thing, is you get to be part of this greater network, whether it's people in your state, whether it's people in a performance group, whoever that might be. You're able to really not only network with the corporate office, but you're able to network with other franchisees and find what's working and really hone in your own employment brand to make it what it is.
Okay, so let's play pretend for a second. Okay. So somebody just signed a franchise agreement. They are working to locate their office. They're about to attend the required right at home training that's needed for every franchise owner before they open their office. Can you maybe talk about some of the things that we talk about in the very beginning? Like, where does a franchise owner start? Let's start just obviously they need to recruit caregivers. So what are some of the tools that we provide, whether it's actual physical, documentation that they receive, whether it's specific support, whether it's, webinars or town halls, or you mentioned performance groups. What are some of the things that we provide our franchise owners with when they first start to recruit those caregivers?
Yeah, well, I think you just answered a lot of it. So that's awesome. So all of those things that Jen just said, in addition to other pieces are template job descriptions, template and sample job postings that you can use.
Awesome.
A roadmap. We provide every franchisee a best practice roadmap for what that cycle should look like, from posting to going through the applicants, to interviewing, to making an offer, to onboarding, and what are all those steps within each of those pieces. So we talk about that and really break it down for the franchisee, because we recognize a lot of times franchisees are coming in with maybe a background in law, or maybe a background in running a different type of business, but maybe not an expert in HR or an expert in recruiting. And that's where our team comes into play and can help with some of those things, and provide the other pieces is vetting out preferred vendors. So having those preferred vendors that we work with and know our system, know our brand, know the processes that take place. That could be an applicant tracking system, that could be a electronic onboarding system, it could be a recruiting texting platform. There's so many different partners out there that we have to really help offices be successful, and not only setting it up and initiating it, but then ongoing and scaling what you've done here day one, and scaling that to 6 months, to a year, to 5 years, and becoming, a $3, $5, $7 million business, whatever that is. That's what our team is here to help support through.
Okay, so where can a franchise owner find this information? Is it in a central place that they can go to access?
Yes, what a great question, Jen. So yeah, we actually have several resources available to franchisees. So we do have I'm going to say a couple of central locations. We have what we refer to as the hub, which is the hub for all central information. So you're going to be able to find resources, documents, templates, samples. You're going to be able to find all sorts of resources there, including news and, webinars that you can sign up for, presentations. But the other piece that we have that I don't want to get lost in translation is a legal partner that we have. And our legal partner is called Polsinelli. And Polsinelli, the segment of business in Polsinelli that we work with are home care industry experts in employment law. And so they have this website that's available to everybody that contains all the compliance information you can look for. What are some sample handbooks, sample policies, arbitration agreements for caregivers. So much is out there, and we pay for that. We provide that, and every franchisee has unlimited access to all of the tools on that platform.
Awesome. Okay. We've got 3 questions, Nikki.
Okay,
actually, I see there's 2. There's 3 questions. There's 2 questions in one, 2 questions in another, and then the third one by itself. So let's start at the top here. Let's see here. So you said, the question says, do you or your franchisees offer insurance and all other benefits you mentioned? So I'm assuming this question is, do franchise owners who hire their staff or their caregivers, is it hourly, or do they get any kind of benefits? Can you describe that to our listeners?
Yeah, I will. And I will say that it's all over the board. So franchisees, we have some franchisees who don't offer benefits. It's strictly an hourly job, and the caregiver is paid for the hours that they work, for training, for, all of those things. But there isn't additional benefits on top of that. But we do have franchisees who do offer additional benefits. So those benefits will be anything ranging from, ACA compliant benefits, those medical health, if you will, benefits, dental. Some offer ancillary benefits. So like those critical illness, hospital indemnity, cancer, some of those pieces, like an AFLAC, if you will. Some offer telemedicine support. Some offer Roth or 401k type of programs. And the good news is, I just said a lot of words, but the good news is when we talk about preferred vendors, is that the franchisor, us, the corporate office, provides the franchisees with a handful of different preferred vendors from a benefits component to help you find a broker that is going to fit your needs and what you want to offer and provide to caregivers and what you don't, and help devise a plan that's going to be best for your particular situation. So that's the good news.
Awesome.
And you have the autonomy to choose what you want to do.
Awesome. Okay. Next question is recruiting. Is it an actual position that people have? So the question is, so is recruiting an actual position? Do I hire a recruiter person? So I know the answer to that, but I'll let you answer
it. So the answer is yes. The answer is yes. A lot of times, especially if you're just starting out, that might be your, one of your first, I would say, 3 positions in the office that you would hire. You need to have a scheduler, somebody who's going to schedule clients and caregivers, somebody who's selling and going out there to referral sources to get the business. And then you need to have someone in the office that is what I will call just loving on the caregivers. And that's everything from recruiting, posting, going through applicants, interviewing, all the way through the life cycle, bringing them in, doing onboarding, tracking their employment documents, and just making sure you have everything in place. And then, like I said, just loving on them. That's what we call it. Love on your caregivers. And that's what that person can do.
Okay. That's a good segue into another question here. So when somebody first opens, how many caregivers do they typically hire? So brand new franchise owner, just open their doors. How many caregivers do they hire before their doors open? Once they're open, and then how do they hire more caregivers as they go? Do they hire 5 right out of the gate? Do they hire 50 right out of the gate?
Yeah.
So that's the question.
Good. It's a good question. And it's one of those things, a lot of times folks used to say, well, gosh, if you have clients, the caregivers will come. If you have the clients, caregivers will come. That's flip-flopped. Now you got to get the caregivers. If you have caregivers, the clients will come. So we always recommend, hiring 5 to 10 right out of the gate. And the reason you want to do that before you even have a single client is because you need to have flexibility in your supply and in your caregivers in order to meet the needs of the clients that you bring on. So you're going to have clients with different acuity needs, different scheduling requirements. Some may be comfortable, some may be smokers, some may be non-smokers, some may have pets, some may not. And so having a pool of caregivers that you can pull from in order to staff those clients that come aboard. So I would recommend 10, a dozen, call it a dozen, give or take, to have kind of on your bench and have those caregiver or have the clients come in from that and be able to staff those. And then from there, Jen, you're going to be constantly hiring. We always say you never stop. You never take the job postings down. It's a constant cycle. Franchisees are doing at least 1 new hire orientation a week. And in a new hire orientation class, it might be 1 caregiver, might be 5 or 7 or 8 caregivers. Just depends on how many applicants you get that week and how many people you can get through the process. But you're always hiring. And if you have those and you have that bench strength, you're going to be able to staff those clients as they come aboard.
Perfect. And maybe you answered this, Nikki, is the recruiter position a position that you hire right out of the gate, or is that a hire later on once you've been open for a while?
It really just depends, Jen, on the strength of the franchisee. So the
Okay.
franchisee may have a strength in this area themselves, and this is something they decide to tackle. And the franchisee may say this is not a strength they have, so they want to hire it and make sure they've got somebody there that can do that from the onset. So it really depends, and I always encourage franchisees to play on their own strengths and background and history for what they're bringing to the table, and hire to adjust for those gaps.
Okay. Got it. And I'm glad this next question came up, because we really haven't talked about how to keep these caregivers. We've talked about the recruitment part. How do we retain them? So this question states, are the caregivers paid even if they are not billing, such as a consulting firm model, or are they paid only if the franchise owner is billing? If the latter, how do you retain those that are not billing?
Yeah. Another great question, and I would say it's a question for the ages. And I would say that those are still some things folks are trying to figure out. So I will tell you again, you have flexibility to do an employment model that makes sense for you as a business owner. That being said, a majority of our franchisees only pay when billed. Now, the exception to that would be training, new hire orientation, some of those things where you're not billed, but you've got to get that caregiver ready and oriented. We do have a few franchisees who, a handful, I will call it, who have a model of guaranteed hours for a select bucket, if you will, of caregivers who they don't say no to extra shifts. They're kind of your caregiver that's there when maybe somebody cancels or something happens, and you can pull from them, and they get 40. And if they're not quite at 40, they're in that class where they're guaranteed hours. So they're getting paid 40, just so you've got a pool of caregivers that you can depend on week to week to pick up shifts as needed. I don't believe, have any franchisees who have the entirety of their caregiver staff on as guaranteed hours. And I don't know of any franchisees that are doing that. But again, to the second part of that question, how do you retain them if they're only working contingent hours, which is what caregivers are called? They're variable hour employees or contingent employees. And it's hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but again, the good news is it's pieces you have control over. So it's how you're communicating. How often are you communicating with the caregivers? How well are you matching them with the clients, and that they're working with clients that they love and want to continue to care for? Are you doing fun events? Are you doing cookouts? Are you doing celebrations? Are you doing trick-or-treat events at your office? And just continually allowing caregivers and office staff to engage and get to know each other and build those relationships is going to help you retain those caregivers.
Got it. Okay, next question. Do owners offer signing bonuses? If so, how much?
Some do. Yes, absolutely. We have lots of different programs out there with signing bonuses, referral bonuses. Sign-on bonuses are ranging in the system. We call it the right at home system. Are ranging anywhere between a $50 hiring bonus all the way up to, I've seen some as high as a $500 hiring bonus. And again, it just depends on the market, where you're at, what you're looking for, what you offer as an employer. But yeah, they're ranging. I will say those with the higher amounts are spreading that out. So they'll say, hey, if it's a $500 hiring bonus, we're going to do 100 at the time, your first day when you show up for orientation. Maybe it's another 200 after 30 days and the remainder after 90 days, whatever it might be. But there's a lot of creativity that you can do when it comes to signing bonuses to keep those caregivers engaged and within your organization.
Got it. Okay, Nikki, hopefully this isn't a tough question for you. It just came to mind.
Okay.
As we look ahead to 2023, how will that change? If you had a crystal ball, which I know you don't, I wish I had one. I don't either. I don't have one, neither do you. But if you had to look ahead to 2023 and think about, okay, current status right now, caregiver recruitment and retention, how is that going to change next year and really for the years to come? Is this something that's going to be here forever, that it's going to be a decade from now and we're going to be singing the same song here? Or are things going to get better?
Yeah.
Give me some hope here, Nikki.
I know it. Are things going to get better? I do think things are going to get better. I do think we'll always be looking for caregivers. That's been our model for 30 years. 30 years ago, we said you have to hire, continue to hire every week. That has not changed. That's where we're at. Yes, right now we're in a little bit of a labor shortage situation. I do anticipate that that's going to get better. We're already seeing that get better. We're seeing applications increase across the system, which is great news. That being said, I don't think it's ever going to come back where caregivers are a dime a dozen and that they're just falling into your lap. I don't think that's going to happen. I think business owners have to continue to be savvy and have to continue to work with and be good brand ambassadors and provide a positive employment culture. But with those things, you're gonna do just fine. You're gonna be able to retain those caregivers and work with those caregivers. The good news is that we continue to be here and work on ways to increase those opportunities, the funnel, we call it, where we're widening that funnel to get more caregivers into those application funnels for you to be able to choose from. So that's the good news. We're continuing to be here and driving these initiatives forward every year.
And thank you for that answer. I just realized over the course of the past 30 minutes, it's kind of been kind of gloomy. Like, oh, here's all these challenges and here's, it's tough. It's challenging. So for our listeners, just know when you do franchisee validation and you talk to our existing franchise owners, they will agree. Yes, there are challenges with caregiver recruitment and retention. And as I said earlier, we have some franchise owners that don't struggle with that. But just know that we have a lot of franchise owners in our system that absolutely love what they do. Successful franchise owners have been thriving for years, thrived through COVID. So this is a business that can be run in present day, despite the challenges. That's why we're here to help you and support you. But I don't want to feel like it was just doom and gloom over the past 30 minutes, because this can be done despite the challenges. And we have two really awesome questions, a few minutes left. I want to squeeze them in real quick before we run out of time. First question, do neighboring franchise owners ever share employees?
That's a tough question. So caregivers are allowed to work, and I don't mean as a brand. I'm speaking from a legal standpoint. Caregivers, employment at will, are allowed to work for whomever they want to, and if they choose to work for 2 different offices, maybe 3 different agencies, and one happens to be a franchisee over here, and another one is a right-at-home franchisee over here, that is just fine. What you can't do from a legal perspective is count those hours as one. They're
Sure.
a separate employee for this person as they are for this person.
Yep.
And they're counted separately for purposes of employment law.
Do they work for competitors too? This question just came in.
Yeah, they do. And you're going to find that caregivers work for multiple agencies. They may work for a hospital system as well, but they're going to work for multiple agencies. And the reason for that is because if we go back to that contingent workforce where they may only be getting 20, 25 hours over here, but they need 40 hours, they're going to work for another agency to help supplement some of that. So there's a lot, and you'll find that across the entire industry as a whole, all across the United States. Caregivers are working for multiple agencies.
Got it. Okay, so I'm going to kind of recap this next question. So this question is around the different types of care that our right-at-home owners provide. Personal and companion care is a caregiver. Specialized nursing services will require some type of a nurse, if you will. And the assumption is that hiring that higher tiered nurse for the specialized nursing services may be a little bit more difficult to recruit. So how does Right at Home help find and keep more specialized caregivers, such as those nurses or even medical assistants, is what it says?
Yeah, so the good news is with the specialized nursing services, you really just need one nurse on staff who will be able to provide the training and the governance or the oversight of the services that are being provided by caregivers, and those caregivers may be a home health aide, they may be a personal care aide, maybe a CNA, but they don't have to be nurses to actually provide the care. You just need a nurse who's providing that oversight of the caregivers who are providing the care. So that's the good news. You only really need that one nurse here.
Got it.
CNAs, CMAs, HHAs, PCAs, all acronyms you'll get to know. They are, you're able to, I don't want to say readily find them, but they're all part of that caregiver pool, or that applicant pool, if you will, that are not necessarily more difficult to find. Yes, nurses can be difficult to find, but the good news is for specialized nursing services, you just need that one in the office who can provide that governance overall.
Okay.
Jen, I know we're running late on time. I did want to add that we also provide for free for every franchisee a learning platform, a training platform that is specific to home care, so that the franchisees don't feel like they are on their own island when it comes to training and meeting regulations and licensing requirements. We're providing the tools for franchisees to be able to do that in their states.
Okay. Awesome. This next comment here is not a question, it's just a comment. I want to read it to you. Not a question, just wanted to say thanks. Great information and love the caliber of folks you have in the corporate office. Thank you for taking the time.
My pleasure.
I will echo that. This has been an awesome conversation, Nikki. Hopefully our listeners found it helpful. I enjoyed the conversation. We do this every 2 weeks. So for our live listeners, join us again in a couple of weeks. To our listeners that are watching this on a recorded basis, thank you for listening as well. Nikki, again, thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Jen. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.